Welcome. My name is Thomas. I'm here to share in this video the Form 8867, which is named Paid Preparers Due Diligence Checklist. This here form is given to everyone who will receive certain types of credits inside their refund for 2021 and 2022 tax year. So different professional softwares will all have this form in it, but they will all be designed differently based on the software overall design features. And so this here form is designed by the IRS. And I'm gonna show you some other forms that's created by other professional software vendors that's gonna be slightly different than the original version of the IRS.gov 8867 form. But all the information that's on this form will be on all the other forms, just in a different configuration and format. So in this here form, which is so crucial because the penalties for non-compliance with these different credits are $540 per offense. So for earned income tax credit, child tax credit, additional child tax credit, other dependent credit, uh, head of household status, and American Opportunity Credit, those different credits that you can qualify for, that you may get that you didn't qualify for, and if it's found out that you got credits that you didn't qualify for, and it's fraudulent, then two things can happen. A, you're gonna get penalized 540 per offense, and B, you can possibly face criminal charges. So this is an important career industry that we do business in, and we want to take it serious like that. So we're gonna walk through this form, and we're gonna read through it. This information that you need to know and understand, because see, you can make some mistakes in life, but some are gonna cost you financially. Some gonna be a learning lesson. Some gonna be a financial learning lesson, but it's gonna cost you. So this is one of the career industries that you don't want to make these type of mistakes when it comes to paying individual income taxes for clients who paying you to do the work. And so, again, this is form of Paid Preparers Due Diligence Checklist. And so, part one covers EIC, child tax credit, additional child tax credit, another dependent credit, American Opportunity Credit, and head of household credit. Head of household status, my fault. And so these are the five things that if you're not in compliance with, the penalty for it is $540 for each one I just mentioned. So 540 times those five by itself is 2,500 and some change. And just think if you got 20 or 30 returns that's jacked up like that, somebody in trouble. So let's get into the action and go through this 8867 form. The first question asks, did you complete the return based on information for the applicable tax year provided by the taxpayer or reasonably obtained by you? And that question should definitely be yes. And so if you check yes to that. And so the thing about these up here, when you're manually doing a return by hand, which you rarely do, but if you are in a predicament where you didn't have no software, but you had all the necessary forms and publications to do a tax return by hand, then you would have to check these off on which ones that the client would qualify for. So for training purposes in this video here, we're going to select EIC, child tax credit, and head of household. Those are the three we're going to select for this video purpose training. And then from there, we go to two. If credits are claimed on the return, did you complete the applicable EIC and or child tax credit, additional child tax credit, or dependent credit worksheet found in the form 1040, 1040 SR, 1040 NR, and 1040 PR or 1040 SS, or Schedule 8812. So these are the different forms that's going to be associated with paying individual income taxes that they're talking about. And so that question should be yes as well. Number three said, did you satisfy the knowledge requirements? To meet the knowledge requirements, you must do both of the following. Interview the taxpayer, ask questions, and contemporaneously document the taxpayer responses to determine that the taxpayer is eligible to claim the credits or and head of household filing status. So that should be yes. 4. Did any information provided by the taxpayer or third party for use in preparing the return or information reasonably known to you appear to be incorrect, incomplete, or inconsistent? If you have to say yes to this, that means you have no business doing this return. So in a perfect scenario, we will be saying no to this. Because if I have to say yes to this question, that means I got to ask too many more questions in this interview process that should make me already uncomfortable to the point where I don't want to take the risk of even doing this person's tax return. And so that's what they're saying to you as well as the IRS if you check yes. But normally it should be no in a perfect world. And so if we said no to that, like we should have, then it tells us to go to question 5. So we don't have to answer questions 4A and 4B. Only if we would have said yes do we have to answer 4A and 4B. But since we said no, we get to go to 5. 5 say, did you satisfy the record retention requirements? To meet the record retention requirements, you must keep a copy of the documentation reference in questions 4B, a copy of this form 8867, a copy of any applicable worksheets, a record of how, when, and from whom the information used to prepare Form 8867 and any applicable worksheets was obtained, and a copy of any documents provided by the taxpayer that you relied on to determine eligibility for the credits and or household filing status, or to figure the amounts of credits. And so we have to say yes to that. Like I say, any negative responses mean I ain't got no business doing this person's tax return. That's the bottom line of that. And then we go to 6. Did you ask the taxpayer whether he or she could provide documentation to substantiate eligibility for the credits and or head of household filing status and the amounts of any credits claimed on the return? If his or her return is selected for audit, that question is yes. Number 7, did you ask the taxpayer if any of these credits were disallowed or reduced in any previous year? A lot of times when we read that at face value, a lot of clients don't really understand what that means. So in layman's terms and simple terms, I ask the question is, have you ever been asked for additional information concerning a tax return uh, that you filed in previous years where they wanted you to prove the income or they want to prove the kids' relationship status to you or anything of that nature. And if they say yes to that type of question, then we will check yes to that box. And then it says, and then A says, did you complete the required recertification form 8862? We say yes to that because we have to do the 8862 now that they said yes to 7. And then number 8 is if the taxpayer is reporting self-employment income, did you ask questions to prepare and complete a correct Schedule C? And so for everybody who got self-employment on their tax return, either in the form of a 1099 NEC or not, you want to click yes to that question. So for everybody who's not doing self-employment, we would have that blank, or we wouldn't answer that at all. We'll skip it. And so we go to part 2. Due diligence questions for returns claiming EIC. It says, have you determined that the taxpayer is eligible to claim the EIC for the number of children, qualifying children, claim or is eligible to claim the EIC? And so when you read that to them, if they got children on their tax return, then we say yes to that. It says B, did you ask the taxpayer if the child lived with the taxpayer for over half the year, even if the taxpayer has supported the child the entire year? And we answer that question, they say yes to that. And then C, did you explain to the taxpayer the rules about claiming the EIC when the child is the qualifying child of more than one person tiebreaker rule? And we say yes to that. So this question is basically saying, out of both parents, did you explain to them that one of them could qualify to claim this child even though they live with you? Because the IRS go by money. And so whatever taxpayer makes the most money, especially if it's significant enough, they will allow the non-custodial parent to claim the child, even if that child didn't stay with the parent, but they did at least do 6 months. That's how that works. And so then we go to the next part 3, due diligence questions for returns claiming child tax credit, additional child tax credit, and other dependent credit. So these are the credits that they're talking about. It says, have you determined that each qualifying person for the child tax, additional child tax, or other dependent credit is a taxpayer's dependent who is a citizen, national, resident of the United States? That's a big yes. 11. Did you explain to the taxpayer that he or she may not claim the child tax credit, additional child tax credit, if the child has not lived with the taxpayer for over half the year, even if the taxpayer has supported the child, unless the child's custodial parent has released a claim to exemptions for the child? And yes to that. Number 12, did you explain to the taxpayer the rules about claiming the child tax credit, additional child tax credit, or other dependent credit for a child of a divorced or separated parents or parents who live apart, including any requirements to attach Form 8332 or similar statements to the return? And we say yes to that. And then we go to here, due diligence questions for returns claiming American Opportunity Credit. This here is a education credit Form 8863, better known as an Obama credit, because this credit was given when he made president for the 8 years he was in there. And so that's what that's talking about in layman's terms. And so if they don't have any children that's of college age that's in college, then we simply uh, leave it blank, or we can say no to that. The choice is yours. And then we go to the next question, due diligence questions for a claiming head of household. Have you determined that the taxpayer was unmarried or considered unmarried on the last day of the tax year and provided more than half of the cost of keeping up a home for the year for a qualifying person? And we say yes to that if they file a head of household. And so when it comes to head of household question, when it comes to filing tax return, the requirements are different than what you have. You being a parent and having children, in your mind, of course, you're head of household. But in reality, as it relates to tax preparation and with the IRS requirements, you having kids don't make you head of household for filing purposes. What makes you head of household for filing purposes is going to be the dollar amount. And one of the key requirements is, did you provide 50% or more of the cost of keeping up where you live? Even though they use the term home, we basically talk about keeping up where you live at. So to be an apartment, you live with somebody, the whole bottom line is that you pay 50% or more to keep up the cost of wherever you live. And if it was no, then you can't file head of household. And the problem is, if you have multiple families living in one address, only one family can claim head of household using that address. If they see 4 or 5 different head of household statuses under one address, that's going to be a conflict, that's going to be a problem, and some letters going to be sent out. So you want to avoid that situation. Here it says eligibility certification. It says interview the taxpayer, ask adequate questions, contemporaneously document the taxpayer's responses on the return or in your notes, review adequate information to determine if the taxpayer is eligible to claim the credits or head of household filing status. Review the information. It says B, complete the Form 867 truthfully and accurately and complete the actions described in this checklist for any applicable credits claimed and head of household filing statuses if claimed. Submit Form 8867 in the manner required and keep all 5 of the following records for 3 years from the last of the dates specified in the Form 8867 instructions under document retention. So here you keep a copy of Form 8867 and the worksheets that go with it. Copies of the documents provided by the taxpayer on which you relied to determine the taxpayer's eligibility for credits and head of household filing statuses, and to figure out the amount of credit, a record of how, when, and from whom the information used to prepare this form and applicable worksheets was obtained, a record of any additional information you relied upon, including questions and asks and the taxpayer's responses to determine the taxpayer's eligibility for credits in head and household filing status, and to figure out the amounts of the credits. It says if you have not comply with all the due diligence requirements, you may have to pay a penalty for failure to comply related to a claim of an applicable credit or head of household filing status. And so we put yes to this certification, 915. Then we go to the next. And so basically we finished with this form here. And so that's how you would fill this 8867 out. And like I say, I'm gonna do some other videos that's gonna have the same form, but it's gonna come from professional software from different vendors that's gonna have a different uh, format where it might be less or more information that we're gonna go through based on the design and configuration of the tax software that determines that. And so if you need to know how to fill out 8867 or you're looking to start your own tax preparation business, then reach out to me concerning my coaching program, 18-month membership access, flat fee, or monthly payments. Learn what all comes with my coaching program that's designed to help you fast track your success in this career industry of tax preparation and taxation. And I'll see you in my next video.